Hello everyone, this is Susan Laspada from the CAT Product Management Team, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about DIBELS Deep. The agenda for today is to discuss what DIBELS Deep is, give you a quick refresher about the different types of assessments. So we'll go over diagnostic, benchmark, and progress monitoring. We'll also be comparing DIBELS Next with DIBELS Deep, why and when you use DIBELS Deep, how it works, and then also a quick software demo of the product. So the first thing we want to talk to you about is what DIBELS Deep is. So DIBELS Deep is a diagnostic assessment that's designed to provide in-depth information for students who are struggling to reach their benchmark goals on DIBELS Next, and for students who are making insufficient progress and that you need more information about them. So it's not intended for a progress monitoring tool, but it's really designed to allow the teacher to get additional information about the students, where she can then decide what kind of small groups the student needs to be placed into or what kind of interventions that she should be using. It is aligned to the Common Core and has been field tested. It was developed by the same researchers at DMG who developed DIBELS Next. And it has three distinct components. So it has phonemic awareness, which is we kind of abbreviate as PA. It has word reading and decoding, or WRD, and comprehension fluency oral language, CFOL. And for M class right now, we actually only support the phonemic awareness portion of this. We will begin working on implementing the word reading and decoding part for MOI, and then the comprehension fluency oral language part is still in research and development over at DMG, so we don't have a date for that one yet. And then to go over the different types of assessments, so you do have your basic screener. So this is the screener you use like DIBELS Next, M-Class Math. You use it 3 times a year, and it gives you information about where your student is based on a benchmark goal. So you get your basic red, green, yellow, and then you go from there. The diagnostic assessment is different because you actually use the diagnostic on your red and yellow students, and the diagnostic has a lot more information, so pinpoints specific areas of weakness that that student has that will then help you inform where you need to start your intervention. So an example of this would be you might take DIBELS Deep and you might take a 2-phoneme word test, and the student does really well on that. But if you go into 3-phoneme words, they might not do well, and then you'll know that you need to start on 3-phoneme words. The next one is progress monitoring. So after you do your intervention, you identify the students at risk, you do your diagnostic and your intervention, you would actually go back into DIBELS Next and use the progress monitoring tool to see how the student progressed with that intervention and see if you maybe need to modify the intervention. So the diagnostic is not about getting students to a benchmark goal or to a green. It's to identify the area that you need to start your intervention. So this is a chart that compares DNext with Deep and kind of the way that they differ. So the first one you'll notice is that DNext has your basic indicators of later literacy success, so based off the benchmark goals, whereas DIBELS Deep has a much broader range of skills that are assessed. So we have the 3 different measures, but within those measures we have up to 80 submeasures. And then you'll find out in a little bit that you can actually identify where to start within DIBELS Deep based on your DNext scores. So DIBELS Next, again, universal screener, so 3 times a year, beginning, middle, end, plus your progress monitoring every 2 weeks or months depending on your progress monitoring plan. And then DIBELS Deep is an optional diagnostic assessment that you only use on students that you need more information for, so you don't have to do it for the whole class. Both assessments are individually administered. So DIBELS Next is timed. Each one is 1 minute, whereas DIBELS Deep is untimed, and the whole assessment PA takes less than 10 minutes. The DIBELS Next is administered for all the students in the class and the grade, whereas DIBELS Deep is assessed just for struggling students. And then DIBELS Next 3 times a year, like I said previously. And then DIBELS Deep, you're going to actually wait until you finish your benchmark assessments. You identify the students that need help, your yellow or your red students in DIBELS Next. And then the software will actually go ahead and recommend a starting point within Deep for you to start to determine where that student needs help. DIBELS Next, that product identifies a risk level, so your benchmark goals. If your student isn't reaching the benchmark goal, it will give you a risk level. But DIBELS Deep actually identifies a specific area of risk. So for DNext, you might know that they're struggling in PSF and phoneme segmentation. But what part of it? Like, is it 2 or 3? So DIBELS Deep helps you focus in on those very specific skills. And then DIBELS Deep, the goal is to get the kids to benchmark and make sure that they're meeting their needs for being at grade. Whereas DIBELS Deep, the goal is to identify precisely where the kid is struggling and to focus your instruction in those areas. And then a couple more just comparison between the two. So they both are assessed via the MClass app. And currently, you'll be able to access DIBELS Deep through any of the Reading 3D products. So you can access it through Reading 3D, DIBELS Next, Burst Reading Assessment, or Burst Reading. They're both available for K-6. However, we do only have the DIBELS PA measure available for DIBELS Deep right now, and that's most relevant for kids who are K1, maybe K2. The kits are required and sold separately, and they do include the student-facing materials. They've both been research-based and validated by DMG, Dynamic Measurements Group. The criterion reference, DIBELS Next compares results to research-based benchmark goals, while Deep follows a scope and sequence established by DIBELS. And then this is a bigger difference. So DIBELS Next is available on MClass Home, and also we do have it in the Reporting Analysis Suite RES. DIBELS Deep is only available on MClass app. We do not have any extra reporting features for it. It is not in RES, and it does not appear in MClass Home. We do intend to add those features, but we don't have a timeline for that right now. So right now, it will only be available on your device. And then again, DIBELS Deep will actually use your DIBELS Next data to determine the starting point, so you don't have to start at the first form and assess when you know that student doesn't need all those forms. And then both of them are aligned to the Common Core. However, DIBELS Next is only tied to foundational skills, while Deep is more tightly aligned to the Common Core. There is a link here to DMG's website to show you what the alignment is for DIBELS Deep. Okay, and then why do you use this? So what the purpose of this is to really help teachers effectively determine where to start students in an intervention plan. DIBELS Next is a good starting point, so you kind of have an idea if they're struggling with phonics or phonemic awareness or comprehension. But you really want to know what specific area within those bigger skills that the student is struggling. So DIBELS Deep really breaks down these early literacy skills into a sequence of discrete components so that you really have a real good starting point for instruction. And it also helps you gain insight into where the students are struggling. And it also helps you understand some questions such as, what type of support does my student need? How can I group the students? Are there multiple students that have the same type of patterns? What specific skills should I be focusing my instruction on? Is maybe the whole class is missing something and there's something missing from your core activities. It'll help you identify that type of stuff. And it'll also help you identify the type of strategies that work for specific students. So for DIBELS Deep, unlike DIBELS Next, you can actually prompt or teach the students and then record what type of strategies you used. So that's a really good way to know, how a student is able to learn a specific skill. And then a little bit deeper look into how it actually works. So it does cover the broad range of skills in the 5 key areas of basic literacy skills. There are more than 80 submeasures. So for instance, PA, phonemic awareness, actually starts with 11 submeasures, and you would start at something very simple, such as blending compound words, and then it would go all the way up to like 4 and 5 phoneme words from there. It does allow educators to track error patterns. So there are predetermined error patterns for each of the questions that you can check. So if the student omitted a sound, added a sound, partially blended something, you can check that. And you can also teach the student. So if you know that the student uses Okonon boxes and that works for them, you can mark down that the Okonon box works really well for that student, and then eventually put that into your interventions and then maybe start taking it away once they're getting it. And it's untimed, so the student doesn't feel the pressure to have to go fast. And it's also very in-depth. So when the screener isn't enough to pinpoint the problem area, that's when you use DEEP. And then again, it's recommended for students who score below benchmark, so the red or the yellow, on B next, or students that are showing signs of needing some intensive reading intervention. So I'm actually, from here, I'm going to show you what it looks like in the actual application, because it is live now. It is a product that we've been demoing with Colorado for the last. So I have a class loaded up here. This particular username is rhoward29. Password is 1234. And this class is group 1. You see we have 4 students that we can assess. So I'm actually going to go into the first student, Dan Dole. And you can see here I do have a deep column. And the deep column will show you the most recent score and then whether the student mastered it, is emerging, or has not learned. So I'm going to go into Dan. And we go into the benchmark screen, and you can see right under all of your DIBELS measures, we have blending. We have the DIBELS deep measures starting with blending compound words. And the one thing you'll notice is that they're not aligned with a time of year, and that's because you can take these anytime. We do recommend that you take them after your BOY or MOY assessments, and maybe EOY if you're going that far, because you want to have the benchmark score there as a basis before you start trying to figure out what the student needs. But we'll go ahead and we'll start with blending compound words. And then you can see, just like DIBELS next, we do have reminders. And the reminders change slightly between the different measures. Like this one, you can tell blending compound words. It talks about compound words. Like I had mentioned before, the teacher can teach the task. So there are some recommended methodologies that show up here. So this one is about holding your hands and putting your hands together to make the word. And then you have your Mr. Says, like your DIBELS next measures. And then this is the format of the assessment. So you do have your Mr. Say. So this would be what the teacher would say to the student. So in this case, lady, bug. It shows what the correct answer is. So it shows what the student should be saying. You can mark it correct, incorrect, or self-corrected. And then you can also say that you taught the student the word. And when you do teach the student the word and they get it, you mark it correct. And then you can kind of mark which of these that they exhibited, which error patterns. And each of the measures are the same. And this particular one has 5. Okay, and then you get your running girl, so you can see this student has mastered it. She's a 4. And then you can go to A2. And then you can see this one has a lot more different types of teaching the task methods. You get your Mr. Says. And then this one also has 5. And there is a discontinue rule, so I'll show you that now. So if you get 3 consecutive answers wrong, you're going to get a pop-up that says, please stop, the student has responded incorrectly. And that's when you kind of know like they need some support in this section here. And if you want to keep going and see like, okay, I know they don't know how to blend syllables, but let's see, maybe they're better with phonemes. You can do that as well. And this one, if you do them out of order, it still lets you do it. So if you get 3 wrong but they're out of order, it still will let you do it. So here you can see we got 2 words correct. And because there is a second discontinue rule, and you can see there, so the second discontinue rule is that the student was unable to provide the minimum of 3 correct answers in 3 consecutive sections. So we discontinue and we can see that that's true. So they got a 0, a 2, and a 2. So that means you discontinue deep, and then that's where you start your intervention. And then you can go in and review them. So if you wanted to change any of your answers or add any additional questions, you can do that as well. And that is the product within Class app. There are a couple things that we are working on implementing. So one thing is we do want to add a notes feature for teachers to be able to jot down some notes about the students. And then we currently only have PA available for K1, but we are opening it up for K6. And then again, we will start developing the WRD measure, hopefully in time for MOY. This is the end of the webinar, but if you would like more information about DIBELS Deep, please visit the intranet site at the link provided to you in this slideshow. And then we also have some marketing materials on our Confluence site regarding DIBELS Deep. There you'll be able to find a one-sheeter, this recorded webinar, and also some sample questions and scoring sheets for DIBELS Deep as well. And then if you have any questions about the product in general, you can contact me, Susan Laspada, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand by.